Appalachian Trail, Maine to Georgia. A continuous marked footpath over 2,000 miles in length, from Mount Katahdin in central Maine to Springer Mountain in northern Georgia. Over there in the distance, in the blue haze, is known as the Peaks of Otter. Nobody knows why they're called the Peaks of Otter. It is said that this perhaps derives from the word Otari, which was a word used by the Native Americans, the Cherokee. Otari or Otari means high places. And so when the settlers arrived here around about the 1800s, they perhaps heard this name Otari and said, let's call this the Peaks of Otter. This is what has happened down through the years in my country, in Ireland. We would have had Gaelic words, Irish words, which when the British arrived, they found hard to pronounce or understand, so they used an anglicised version of the words or names they came across. The Peaks of Otari, the peaks in high places. I'm walking along here, actually thinking about snakes, and I walk right up on one on the trail. Very, very camouflaged in the leaves at the side of the trail. So much can change overnight or in the space of a week, as has been the case here. I'm now walking on my own, believe it or not. And that's because around a week ago we bumped into Amelia. Amelia was with us for a couple of days. Then we bumped into Holly, at which point the two girls hiked ahead of us. They're now very far ahead of us on trail. And myself, Lee and Bennett took a couple of rest days in town. Lee was meeting up with his wife, which was great, but when we went to get back on trail, Lee had picked up a virus, which he still has many days later, and he decided to go home to recover. And then a couple of days later, after myself and Bennett had been walking and camping together, just the two of us, Bennett had big problems with his knee. He's had knee problems all trip, but it got really bad, and he ended up getting picked up on a road crossing and taken to town. So he is now back behind me, unsure of when he's going to be able to get back on trail, and I am walking on my own. This is Brown Mountain Creek. On the other side, you might be able to make out this wall. And this is in fact the remnants, the remains of a very small farming community. So there were slaves who were freed in the early 1900s, and they moved here to this very spot and built a farming community where they lived off the land. I'm not sure when the buildings were abandoned, clearly some time ago, but the remnants are still here. It's incredible. Down in these deep valleys, the deepest valleys in Appalachia, some of the history that you'll come across. This is what you call a blowdown. So last night there was a very short thunderstorm, probably only lasted around 30 minutes max, and my tent was completely flooded. It's never happened in all my years camping. Tent was completely flooded. I managed to get into a shelter for the night, but my tent is soaking wet and there's no sun forecast for today, which means I'm probably going to have to get off trail. But that's what happens out here. That's what can happen out here. You just got to be prepared for everything and just deal with everything as it comes. This is a really nice shelter. Shelters are dotted around every 10-15 miles along the Appalachian Trail. You can see there's 2 levels on this one. You just sleep in there with your roll mat and your bunk or your sleeping bag, and somewhere to sit down. If it's especially rainy, stormy, this can be a better option than your tent. And up the hill is what they call a privy. Privy. With a view. W.J. Mayo home place. You can see here you have the chimney stack. That's the hearth, the fireplace, and a very old building, or the remnants of a very old building, where you have the dry stone wall structure, meaning that there's no mortar or cement to hold it together. Each stone is placed perfectly in such a way that the structure will withstand the elements. Well, this man or woman must have really enjoyed their wilderness to live out here. Mayo, of course, is a county in Ireland too, in the west of Ireland, where the landscapes are indeed very barren and wild. We're on the road to nowhere. I'll take that ride. What a strange week this has been, walking by myself. The first couple of days I felt nervous, anxious, without Liam Bennett walking in front and behind. And I will say that things felt different, not in a good way, because of the way I was thinking. However, after I told myself to get a grip, to get on with my life, I started to reimagine my hike and rethink the way I was thinking. And that's when I began to notice more about my surroundings, more about the trees, the water, the sights and the sounds, and the ancient relics that I've been pointing out in the last couple of days. And that's also when I believe I started to reconnect with what's going on inside, and to feel more assured, more optimistic. And the combination of these two left me feeling very good, very, very good. And today I was even thinking, I'm not just walking the Appalachian Trail. What's happening here is I am walking back home to myself on the Appalachian Trail.